He joins up with the Raiders until the end of the season alongside veteran centre or back rower Liam Harrison. Harrison, who's 37, made more than 300 appearances for his hometown club between 2005 and 2016. And he has now come out of retirement to play alongside brother Ben and help the Raiders through an injury crisis.
That's what you need to do, Castleford. Sign players who are retired.
That's it, innit? Rangi Chase, they could have had him and now his season's over, innit?
Yeah. I don't think signing them whilst they're injured helps, though.
No, but if they'd have signed him before he signed for Rochdale...
Yeah, true.
Then it might have avoided that injury. Anyway, whatever. But just another line on Barrow. They've also announced that League One top try scorer T. Ritson has signed a new 3-year deal with the club. Ritson, who's 25, has signed until the end of the 2024 season.
Yep. And then, potentially a big story to be discussing next week is that a decision on whether to press ahead with the 2021 World Cup at the end of the season will be made next week. 4 months out from the opening game between England and Samoa at Newcastle St James's Park, the 16 competing nations still do not know if the event will go ahead as planned or be moved forward 12 months to 2022. Organisers have held back on making a final decision, but tournament chief executive John Dutton has admitted that time is running out. The rapid progress of the UK's COVID-19 vaccination programme has given rise to optimism, but it's thought a number of countries have yet to sign participation agreements, and NRL clubs are said to remain nervous about releasing their players who would have to quarantine for 2 weeks on their return to Australia. With at least half the players from the 16 nations due to arrive from the Southern Hemisphere, officials have been holding talks with the Australian Rugby League Players Association. It is thought that more than 400 players and officials based in the Southern Hemisphere have been offered chartered flights for the return trip to England to avoid mixing with the general public.
And Alan Walker got in touch. He said, I reckon it should go ahead even though Australia and New Zealand ain't coming. It'll have an asterisk, but then it probably would have anyway. There are many nations who want the chance to go further. It could be the most interesting tournament ever. Imagine Jamaica, Serbia, Lebanon and France in the semis. The odds will change and there won't be any England players in finals football down under except Burgess. I've seen comments coming out of people who are involved in the game in this country but also involved in the international game with many of the players down under, from Christian Wolff, who's the Tonga coach as well as St Helens coach, and Adrian Lamb, who's the assistant at Australia as well as being the Wigan Warriors coach, both sort of encouraging it to take place. And Wolff was quite bullish in the quotes that I've read on the St Helens Star website, saying about his players are basically ready to go. They're willing to play. So I would be very disappointed if the NRL clubs held this back at an idea of their players would have to quarantine when that would happen 3 months before their season would be starting. I'd find that hugely disappointing if that was what was stalling this here. There has to be some concern, doesn't there? Because there's growing infection rates in New South Wales, so COVID will be more on the agenda in Australia right now as it stands, even though they're not seeing anything like what we've seen over here. Of course, our infection rates are going up, but we're waiting to see if it's going to have the knock-on effect to hospitalisations, deaths, and the more serious things that come off the back of this sort of stuff. I want to remain positive, but when you hear stories like this, Sarah, it has to make you concerned that the tournament won't be happening this year.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely the way it's going. I don't know. I sort of feel like as soon as you start hearing stories like this, like, oh, it's under discussion, or we're considering it and things like that, then actually it probably isn't going to happen.
Now, what we would hope is that the some sort of special relationship that our government have apparently sorted out with Australia now and stuff might make there be some flexibility in the rules depending on how people are tested and travel and that sort of stuff for when they get home. But Australia have taken COVID very, very seriously in trying to stamp it out rather than vaccinate, whereas we've tried to kill as many people as possible and vaccinate as many people as possible, it seems like. So yeah, I don't know if that would happen, would work out right. So it's a concern. I am. You can probably tell in the way that I'm talking. I'm concerned about it now, which I
Yeah.
haven't been. I hadn't been for a while, but now I
I
am.
hadn't even considered it really as not happening until this story sort of came out. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm still hopeful, but I'm less confident.
I guess one way or the other we'll know by next show.
Yeah, I tell you what though, it does mean that all the holiday I've booked off for this November, or saved up to book off for this November, will be a waste of time. I'll be having a good few winter days sat doing fuck all.
Emma will get some DIY sorted.
And finally, a different and finally this week, Sarah. We've reserved the and finally now for all of the stories that we didn't have in the news, but that EFC 78JU commented on. So it's kind of rumour mill, Warrington related stories time for the most part. So let's take these one by one. So I'll start with Widdop is not leaving Wire, EFC has said. He said Gareth Widdop is settled at the HJ Stadium and does not want to leave Warrington Wolves and return to the NRL to replace George Williams. He is one of the star players in the squad. Yeah, he won't be there next year, mate, I'm sure.
So Blake Austin heading off to Hull KR. Blake Austin has had a bid from Hull KR to head there, as he won't get played as much when George Williams arrives. So the Robins might have a new star man in their team, as he was one of Wire's star men. Best of luck, Blake, if you accept the contract offer and the bid.
Am I to understand though that this is similar to what other people have suggested? Is you pay for him, Warrington, but we'll take him off your salary cap?
Oh, I don't know.
Because he's one of the top paid players in the league, I would thought.
Yeah. From what I've heard, the Rovers have now come out and said that, they were never interested. They weren't there. They didn't do anything.
Right. Okay. So it's yet to be seen how 3 will go into 2 in that Warrington side, but it's not a bad problem to have, I don't suppose, especially with the form that they're in at the moment.
No.
In fact, how does Williams get in right now with the way Widdop and Austin are playing together? Chris Hill targeted by Huddersfield Giants, EFC has said. He said, I was not expecting that news update to come through today after being at the club for 10 years. Ian Watson is keen to sign the former captain of the Wire. Hopefully he stays and ends up retiring at Warrington. This has a sniff of trying to get a new contract out of Warrington to me.
Just a little bit, yeah.
But we'll see.
Sam Tompkins captaining England against the Combies. It was up to Sean Wayne, who he picked as the England leader for the game at Warrington, and he's named Sam Tompkins to lead the side. The former Wigan and Catalans Dragon player has said being named captain is right up there with anything he's achieved in the game.
Yeah, I suppose we probably would have talked about this in the kind of talking about the game itself, but he was named after we did the show last week, so we didn't have a chance to react to it. What was your reaction to Sam Tompkins being the person who was given the captaincy position at England?
Yeah, I've got no problem with it. He's an experienced player, isn't he? And I quite like a fullback to be captain because I think they've got that really good view of everything that's going on with being at the back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because they're always talking anyway, and you're looking at a player who's probably one of the most capped players that'll be in that World Cup squad. Gareth Widdop might get into the squad, you would hope, over some of the people that were at half-back last week. For example, but whether it be in the starting side, I don't know. Tom Burgess is going to be a player, Elliot Whitehead. There'll be players that have got a lot of caps, James Roby, but Sam Tompkins has to really be, experience, both for England and not for England, experience playing for Sean Wayne, and, seniority, age, quality. It seems sensible to me, but...
Yeah, and he's a player that's going to be on for the full match, isn't he? As opposed to, like one of your forwards who's likely to be on and off.
Yeah. And I think within an England squad, within any international squad, within any representative squad, you'd expect to have a hell of a lot more leaders than just your one captain.
Yeah.
I always sort of think, when I think about England football and the hoo-ha they make about captaincy and stuff, I always think just give it to Which is the country? Is it Italy who just give it to the most capped player? Like,
I don't know, possibly.
That sort of approach to it makes sense to me, because you should have a leadership group of 5 or 6, but Sam Tompkins is definitely fits all of the bills to be in that group, so fair enough.
Yeah.
Tom Lynham set for exit as well, EFC has told us. He said he was one hell of a player even when he got the tries he was after, mostly that one at the Totally Wicked Stadium in the semi-final against St Helens to send the wire to the grand finals play Wigan. We need to get him to sign the contract, even if he does not. Best of luck. You will always be welcome back at Warrington with your new club. Yeah, I've not heard anything about this one. Obviously, it's on the going through the Warrington rumour mills there, Tom Lynham. I think Warrington can do better now at this stage with Tom Lynham's career, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him playing elsewhere. But he's still not a bad player, as he showed on Thursday night with the long range intercept try that he scored.
Yeah, decent player, but I think maybe his attitude is what stopped him being a better player than he could have been.
Yeah, I think that's fair from what we kind of know, isn't it? From what we've seen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, loads of news stories there, and the EFC rumour mill as well, which is always good to catch up on. So thanks everyone for getting those views in. I think EFC wins MVP for this week's reviews based on those inputs. We're now going to move. Oh, sorry. Shout out to BBC Sport Rugby League page, totalrl.com, loverugbyleague.com. They of course provide the news stories for us to just comment on. We're now going to move into match reviews, which will have a bit of internationals, bit of Super League. See where we get to. Match reviews time then. Plenty of games to talk about. We're going to start with the England internationals, and the first one of those to be played was the Women's International, Wales's first ever test match, but they were not a match for England. It was 34-0 to England at half time. It finished 60 points to 0. As England slowed a little bit in the second half, but not much. In terms of the stats, even though we know they exist because the RFL put out a very nice tweet that told us about Tara Stanley's running meters, we don't actually have full stats, unfortunately, but we can tell you who scored. So the try scorers for England: Carrie Roberts, Tara Jones, Jodie Cunningham, Shona Hoyle, Fran Goldthorpe, Georgia Roach, Emily Rudge got 2 tries, Caitlin Beaver, Georgia Wilson and Holly Dodd. So that's 10 try scorers out of 11 tries. It's pretty good
That's
going.
Good.
2 goal kickers as well. Tara Stanley had 6 before she was given a breather for the back end of the game when Beth Stott took over and got 2 conversions. No one obviously scored for Wales as they put up a 0, but probably, some people in that Wales side to give compliments to all the same. So we'll see what the fan views had to say on this match.
Yep, so Mark Butler said, I watched Wales men lose 80-12 to England in 2012, 104 years after their first international. So I think our women can be proud of their efforts in their first test, although we're clearly short of the level. What you want to see more of, above anything else, is a bit more belief in possession, as Wales seem to shrink after setbacks in their own sets. This can only come with more games. I hope we get them.
Yep, I think they would be a fantastic option for a warm-up opposition for another World Cup nation ahead of the tournament, obviously because Wales aren't involved in it, so let's see that happen. Pop the Viking said, great to see Women's RL on Sky, great coverage for the game. England the better team, but great to watch. Now having to look for a club for Grace as she wants to play more rugby, not just at school. That's good news, isn't it?
Yeah, go for it, Grace.
I tell you what as well, there's some players in that side that Grace can look at and think, I've got a similar, I mean obviously she's very young still, so her body will change and stuff, but she's got a similar body type to sort of the likes of Caitlin Beavers or Georgia Wilson, and she can look at those people and think, these guys are scoring tries for England, this could be me. Yeah. Very inspiring.
Yeah, definitely. EFC 78JU said, was not the result Wales are after, but still it was a good game to watch. England ended up winning 60-0 in the end. Wales could not get anything past the English defence. On to the Rugby League World Cup girls. But for Wales, they get to rest, unlike England.
Matt Speakman said, bit of a mismatch as expected, but can't fault the effort from Wales. England looking really good.